Carnivore cottage pie or shepherd's pie is one of the most requested recipes that I have had from viewers since I invented carnivore mashed potatoes. Now, if you just went, "What?" I'm going to link down below to my carnivore mashed potato video. If you haven't seen it, you need to go check that out. I'm actually going to be redoing that recipe with an updated version to make it a little bit easier for you guys. But in the meantime, you can go watch the original, and I apologize for the quality of that video. It was a long time ago. But today I'm going to show you how to use it and make a carnivore or a ketovore or a keto, depending on how you want to spice it up. Cottage pie if you use ground beef, or shepherd's pie if you use ground lamb. Let's take a look at this incredible recipe because this one's a doozy. The first thing I'm gonna need for this cottage pie or shepherd's pie is a batch of my carnivore mashed potatoes. I'm gonna link that video down below, and as soon as I come out with the new version of this, I'll link that video down below for you guys as well. But this is just a fantastic recipe that makes this cottage pie or shepherd's pie possible. You guys have all probably seen this before, and if not, you can go watch that video for the full instructions. We're gonna make one full batch of my carnivore mashed potatoes, but make sure to leave out the egg white powder. We don't want the egg white powder in there, and there's no need for it. It's gonna make it much easier to bake this. So one batch of the carnivore mashed potatoes without the egg white powder. Be careful not to get too much liquid in it when blending them, and you're gonna be good to go. Let's continue making these mashed potatoes so we can make the shepherd's pie. I'm going to add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of fresh grated Parmesan cheese to mix into my carnivore mashed potatoes. This is for flavor, it's also for texture, and it's going to help this brown as our crust on top of our shepherd's pie. Just fold that in really well. It's really just to taste, but 3 to 4 tablespoons for this batch should be plenty. Make sure you have extra to put on top later. All right, so we're gonna make the filling for our shepherd's pie or our cottage pie. I'm using ground beef, so this is technically a cottage pie. Sometimes cottage pie also has sliced potatoes instead of mashed potatoes, but that's not really a rule that has to be followed. So we're gonna do a cottage pie, but you can do the same thing for shepherd's pie by using ground lamb instead. We're gonna use ground beef. I'm gonna use about 1.5 pounds of this, and then we're gonna season it with some different things. Now, if you are strict carnivore, don't yell at me in the comment section. You just leave these things out. But if you're strict carnivore, use salt. You don't have to use anything else if you don't want to. Or if you want to be a little more keto or ketovore, you can add some other things. If you're loose with your carnivore, you can add seasonings. Whatever you want to do, customize this. But I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. If you don't want to use Worcestershire, you could also use my carnivore soy sauce, which I'll put down below, which is a beef broth base. I'm also going to use salt and black pepper, of course. I'm going to use a little bit of tomato paste for carnivore. I probably wouldn't recommend that, but it is going to be nice in there if you're keto or ketovore and you have that flexibility. For seasonings, we're going to use dry thyme leaves, we're going to use garlic and onion powder, and we're going to use paprika. So we're going to put the beef in here, cook it down. I'm going to add some seasonings, get all that going, and then I'm going to pull out some beef broth as well, and we're going to finish up the mixture for our cottage pie filling. In the meantime, I'm going to set my oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit and let it preheat while I cook up the meat. 1 to 2 pounds of ground beef goes into the same skillet I cooked my eggs in. You can use anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds. I'm using 1.5 pounds. I'm going to put a pinch of salt and then the rest of my seasonings in there, and we're going to brown this up. I'll link my meat chopper below because it makes it a lot easier. If you are going to use the tomato paste, make a little well in the center of your beef, and we're going to squeeze in a couple of tablespoons right into the middle of the skillet. Use the skillet to fry this because it'll take some of the raw taste away, and then you can combine it in with your ground beef. Whatever you do, don't be mopey like my sous chef. Like and subscribe now. Once the tomato paste has gone in, if you're using that and you've mixed it all through, we can put in our Worcestershire, or if you're using it, the Carnivore soy sauce, a couple of tablespoons. If you're not using tomato paste, you're using like my Carnivore soy sauce so that you don't have any of these other seasonings, totally fine. As soon as the beef is browned, you can go ahead and add this. We're just gonna reduce this down until the liquid is gone. Once the Worcestershire sauce has basically evaporated, we're going to add in about 1/2 cup of beef bone broth. Use whatever kind of beef broth or beef bone broth you enjoy. And we're going to do the same thing, reduce this down until it's almost gone. So the beef broth has basically reduced down to where the meat is sort of a wet mixture, but it kind of sticks together. There is no liquid left in the bottom of the pan. We can go ahead and put this into a pie plate or a baking dish, whatever you're going to use, and we'll start assembling a shepherd's pie ready for the oven. This is my favorite way to get the mashed potato mixture on top of a shepherd's pie. You can do it however you want, but I find it easiest to use a piping bag because 1, it's not as messy for me, and 2, I think I get a much prettier result. The last thing we need to do before putting this in the oven is take 1 egg yolk, a couple of tablespoons of water, and a small pinch of salt and whisk it up to make an egg wash. We're going to use a pastry brush to put that over the top of the mashed potato mixture, and then we're going to sprinkle with fresh grated Parmesan cheese. Once the top has been egg washed, we're just going to take some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, sprinkle over the top, and throw it in the oven. Now we just need to bake this at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. And when it comes out, it should be nice and hot, brown and crispy on top. All we need to do is plate it up and enjoy this shepherd's pie. All right, we are going to test some incredible cottage pie. Now I used ground beef, so this is technically a cottage pie, but you could use ground lamb and you could make it a shepherd's pie. What do you think about the idea of this? I know you say you grew up eating cottage pie or shepherd's pie.
Well, so I actually learned something while making this video because my Nana would make a really mean shepherd's pie. At least I thought it was a shepherd's pie. But she never cooked with lamb at all, so she definitely did ground beef.
Yeah.
So I guess I actually grew up then with a cottage pie. So I've been calling it something wrong for at least 20 years.
It's okay. So, I didn't know the difference for a long time either. So.
I didn't. But then when you said shepherd's pie and the lamb, I was like, whoa,
yeah,
mind blown. So I'm very excited though, because I loved eating this when I was a kid. The idea of just like meat and potatoes, I'm definitely a meat and potatoes kind of gal, especially if they're carnivore mashed potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yours, I will say, I'm so impressed out of the gate. I wasn't sure about how you were going to get like that crust. Like around the edge here, you have like an actual brown crust. Really impressed by that. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love everything about the way that you have it cooked and seasoned. I love how in spots the mashed potatoes are just like this soft fluffiness that I would expect from an actual real mashed potato. But then on the edges, you actually do have just a little bit crispier of a texture of potato. I love everything about this.
I think that's a fantastic dish.
I am very impressed by this, babe. I think you did an incredible job. Really shows too like how great your carnivore mashed potatoes are. I don't pick up on anything flavor or texture wise different than what I did when I was a kid and when you know what my Nana would make. I am so impressed by this. I think this is so good.
Well guys, that's how you make this. Leaving out the egg white powder when you make the mashed potato mixture, and then if you need to, using some of the Parmesan cheese to sort of absorb some of that extra moisture is a really great technique for doing this, to not just bake this and turn it into scrambled eggs again. It's also the way that I would suggest you make the mashed potatoes just for mashed potatoes if you're trying to reheat them. If you eat them immediately and you have a little bit too much moisture in them, using the egg white powder to thicken them back down for the texture is great. But especially if you want to use it for something like this, you're going to reheat it. That's one of the things that I have learned over the last year and a half of being in YouTube land and doing all these recipes by using my carnivore mashed potatoes as many times as I have. If you're careful to not get too much moisture, you don't even need the egg white powder for the texture, and then it's much easier to reheat later on. So it's perfect to use in dishes like this when you use that trick and you don't actually put any egg white powder in there. That's how we do it for the shepherd's pie or the cottage pie. Like I said in the video, if you're keto, you can add more of the veggies if you want. If you're ketovore and you're okay with sauces in there, great. If you're really strict carnivore, you could do this with beef and salt and just make carnivore mashed potatoes on top, and it would still work. It would still taste great. So you do it however it is that works for your version of the proper human diet, whatever it is that appeals to your sensibilities on the low carb spectrum. Guys, make sure to make some amazing cottage pie or shepherd's pie, whichever one it is you would like. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, because I think this is a recipe that, quite honestly, nobody is going to know the difference between this and the real thing if you just don't tell them. I really think it's good to that point. This is a fun one. We're going to sit and enjoy our dinner. We really appreciate you guys watching. All my links are down below. As usual, shout out to my Patreon and band members. I have some more special things coming with some behind the scenes stuff of the carnivore mashed potatoes that you guys are going to get to see. So if you all would like to join in on that, you can join my Patreon or my YouTube membership groups. All those links are down below, where you get all the extra recipes and all the behind the scenes content that we're going to be starting to do more of. It's a lot of fun, and that makes you guys a member of the band, which means you're the first to know about all of the cool things that I'm trying to work on. We really appreciate our band members because that's how we afford to do this. So thank you guys so much for being here. Go check out those links down below. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button that just lit up for you if you haven't yet. Tell us if you're going to go make some shepherd's or cottage pie with these carnivore mashed potatoes. This is Chris Cookin' Nashville, my beautiful wife, Ash Taylor. You guys eat your meat, especially when it looks like a shepherd's pie. Love your life. We're going to see you here in the kitchen and a whole bunch of other places for more cool recipes.
So this is a cottage pie. Does the shepherd live in the cottage?
Yes, he does.
Does he make the pies in the cottage? I need to know now. I'm just curious.
We'll have to go investigate and figure out what
this is
his story is.
It's a valid question. Yeah.